Hi, good morning, everyone. So we'll discuss the previous few lectures. Let me open a whiteboard. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask now, or we'll continue from the Navier-Stokes equations. How many of you have gone through the last lecture uh, where I discussed Navier-Stokes equations or momentum equation? Please write in the chat window. Okay. Do you have any questions, or we shall move on? Is everything clear?
Sir,
Yes. Yes, Raj.
sir, can you discuss the answer of the assignment you have given?
Okay. We'll do that first. So what I asked was, let's say this is an element. Okay, this is an infinitesimally small element because what I wanted you to prove was that at a particular point, tau ij is equal to tau ji. That's what I clarified in an email. But even before that, what we were discussing was for an infinitesimally small element. So although we are taking this big control volume, which is a cuboidal control volume, but later on we will say that its dimensions delta y, delta x, and delta z is the height. These tend to 0. Okay. So let us now draw the stress components. I'll draw the axes also. This is x, y, and z axis. In that case, this is tau yy, tau xx, tau zz. Similarly, the other shear components, this one, and this one. Okay, you can name all of them. Now we can take any axis, and about that we can write the angular momentum equation. What is the angular momentum equation? That is torque equal to I alpha, where alpha we can assume to be some value. Okay, there will be some angular acceleration we can assume. Now we can write the torque in terms of all these stresses. Let us consider z axis, which is passing through the center of centroid of this element. We can call it center of gravity, center of mass, or centroid if the density is constant. Let us consider the centroid, the geometrical center. I'll draw the axis here. This is the axis. Now you can see that all the normal stresses, they give a zero torque to this body. Now which stress components give a finite torque? So let me zoom in and just identify these ones, and the similar stresses on the opposite faces, on the negative faces. Okay. So let us take a top view of this element and draw these stresses. From the top view, this is our axis. And the stresses, these are the positive side, and on the negative side you have these, where I'll draw the axes. This is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. And let me write the subscripts for the stress components. This is tau on the y face and in the x direction. So I'm talking about this one right here. So on the y face in the x direction, tau yx. Similarly, the other one, this one, this is on the x face and in the y direction. Okay. And as discussed before, we can write for a point, this will be same as tau xy and this will be tau yx. All right. Now let us write the torque. What is this distance? This is delta y by 2, and this distance is delta x by 2. Okay. So the torque due to tau yx is tau yx times delta y by 2 in the negative z direction. So we have a negative sign here. And because of tau xy, the torque is in the positive z direction. And this is delta x by 2. Similarly, the torques due to the negative side stresses, tau xy and tau yx, these are tau xy, delta x by 2, and which direction is that? Positive z or negative z? Can you please write here in the chat window? Because of this negative phase. Can you please write in the chat window? Should there be a positive sign or a negative sign in front of this? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Some of you have already done this, so yeah. Okay. So if you see, okay, how many of you know what is a torque? How many of you don't know? I hope everybody knows. So you can use the right hand rule. Okay. So in this case, when you use the right hand rule, the thumb is in the upward direction. That is the positive Z direction. And the force direction, that is the direction of your fingers in this case. So you can see the fingers will curl like this because the force is acting like that, and the thumb is in the upward direction. So this is in the positive direction. There is a plus sign here. And then because of tau yx, which is on the negative face, it is in the downward direction. So there will be a negative sign here. And you have tau yx. And the distance, the arm distance is delta y by 2. All right. So about this positive Z axis passing through the center, centroid, this is the torque. Is that clear? Is there any question? Okay. So then this is equal to I alpha. Now what is the moment of inertia for a cuboid of sides delta x, delta y, and delta z? Okay. Up until now, this is not the actual torque, because tau yx is just force per unit area. It is not a force. So you have to multiply the area also to this tau yx to get the actual force. Okay, let me erase that. Yes. So what is the area on which this tau yx is acting? This first term. This was the positive phase that we considered, which is this one. And the area of the phase is this one, on which it is acting. So that area is delta x, delta z. So let me write delta x delta y delta z by 2. That's what will come there. Similarly, this one, the positive tau xy, the positive phase tau xy, on which area is that acting? It is acting on this area here, which is delta y delta z. So here I have to write delta y delta z to get the torque. Similarly, you can imagine the other areas as well. And you can see that everything is going to get, all the terms are going to get the total volume of the element, which is delta x, delta y, delta z. So in these two terms also, I can just take delta x, delta y, delta z common. So I will have delta z by 2. Is that clear? Now this is the total torque. And this is equal to I alpha. What is the formula for moment of inertia? Can somebody write here? For a cuboidal element with sides delta x, delta y, delta z. So B is breadth and H is height.
So it's BH cube divided by 12. Or we can take other also, sir, like length into breadth raised to cube divided by 12.
Yes, but actually there are three lengths here. There is delta x, delta y, and delta z. Do you have a formula for that?
So,
So here this BH cube by 12 seems fine, but that is if you have only two dimensions, breadth and height, two different sizes in two different directions.
so if you are considering the z-axis to be the axis of rotation, then it should be delta x into delta y raised to cube divided by 12, right?
Yeah. So does delta z not come into picture there?
No, sir, I think no.
Okay. Okay. So you can check the dimensionality and all those things to see if it is correct or not. Or if you remember the formula, you can also. Let me write it here. And all right. It will be something like this and times alpha. All right. Now let us divide delta x, delta y, delta z. Let us divide by delta x, delta y, delta z on both the sides.
Sir,
Yeah.
so actually, moment of inertia of the fluid element along z-axis should be 1 by 12
Yeah.
into mass into dx squared plus dy squared.
Okay.
Delta x squared plus delta y squared in brackets.
Is that correct? I'm not sure.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. And what is mass?
So mass is equal to density into delta x into delta y and delta z.
All right. So I don't remember this formula right now. Let me just write whatever you say. 1 by 12 into density of the element, density of the fluid that the element is made up of, times the volume, which is delta x, delta y, delta z, times delta x square plus delta y square. All right, times alpha. Now this delta x, delta y, delta z cancels out from both the sides. And you are left with this delta x square plus delta y square on the right hand side. Now we assume that the element is infinitesimally small. Now this gives tau xy plus or minus tau yx equal to 0. Therefore, tau xy is equal to tau yx. Similarly, if you consider other axes, x-axis, so momentum balance equation, the angular momentum balance equation, or torque equal to I alpha about x-axis passing through the center and y-axis passing through the center, you will get the other two formulae also. Tau yz equal to tau zy and tau zx, tau xz. Yeah, is there any question? Is it clear? Okay. So by doing this in 2 dimensions, let's say, if we consider only 2 dimensions, we had tau xx or tau yy, whatever direction that is, and we had tau x phase in y direction and tau yx. So our stress state was like this, and on the negative faces the stresses are same. If I write it in the matrix form, it is tau xx, xy, yx, yy. So there were 4 unknowns, but by doing this, by applying the angular momentum equation, we get tau xy equal to tau yx. So now we have reduced one variable, one unknown. Now we have only 3 unknowns. So this is the benefit of what we did here. And in 3 dimensions, you reduce 3 unknowns. You reduce the number of unknowns by 3. And then we can use the linear momentum equation to solve for the other unknowns. Okay. Any other question? Or else we'll move on. Okay. Now the momentum balance equation that we wrote was rho dv by dt equal to minus gradient of pressure plus del dot tau or divergence of the stress tensor and plus if you have any other body force such as gravity. So instead of writing mg, we write rho g because we have divided everything by the element volume. So we get rho g there. And for a Newtonian fluid where tau can be written as mu del v plus del v transpose, where del is gradient here. This del is gradient of velocity and this is gradient of velocity transpose, because gradient of velocity will be a tensor. It won't be a vector or a scalar. You would have read about del dot v. Del is a vector which is in Cartesian coordinates, I cap dou by dou x plus j cap dou by dou y plus k cap dou by dou z. This is a vector and velocity is a vector. Uy plus vj plus wk. Now you may already know what is del dot v, which is a dot product between the two. And del dot v will give you dou u by dou x plus dou v by dou y plus dou w by dou z. And del dot v is equal to 0 is the continuity equation for incompressible fluids. But what is this del v here? Del v is gradient of v, it is not del dot v. Del v is a tensor because you have stress tensor on the left hand side here. So how do you calculate that? Okay. So now let's say you have two. So I'll give you a way of finding this del v. Let's say you have two matrices. The sizes are A by B and N by M. If you want to multiply these two matrices, so what I'm finally getting at is that you can multiply two matrices del and V to get the final matrix for del V, or the gradient of velocity. So if you want to multiply two matrices of sizes A by B and N by M, what should be the condition that should be satisfied for you to
P
be
equal
able
to
to
N.
multiply? Yes,
P equal to N.
B
P
equal to
should be
N.
no. P should be equal to N.
B should be equal to N, right? All of you agree? Okay. So let us write del and V in such a way that the number of columns of del match with the number of rows of V. Okay. And finally, the matrix size that we want is A by M, which should be 3 by 3 because that is the stress matrix. All right. So let us write 3 rows for del. Like this. So this is a 3 by 1 matrix times 1 by 3 matrix, which is U, V, and W. So this can be imagined to be this tensor del V. So what do you get from here? Del U by del X. So this is the del V matrix or del V tensor. Now what we want is del V plus del V transpose. Now we'll add its transpose to this matrix. The transpose will be plus so we take the column and convert it to the row. So first column becomes first row. Okay, like this. Now we add these two. And what we get is first terms of both the matrices, 2 dou u by dou x, 2 dou u by dou x. Second one is dou v by dou x plus dou u by dou y. And the third is that. Now we know that stress tensor is symmetric. That is tau xy is equal to tau yx. So what you get here will be same as this term. You can verify it from here. You have dou u by dou y and dou v by dou x here. So you add, you will get the same thing. Now, as you know that this is a constitutive relationship, Newton found it to be true. That's why this is known as Newton's law of viscosity. That's what we discussed. This does not come from any mathematical law, any physical law like mass conservation or momentum conservation, something like that. This is a purely empirical observation. From experiments, Newton derived this formula. But there is some law that we have used here, the law of conservation of angular momentum, that states that tau ij has to be equal to tau ji. Tau xy is equal to tau yx. That's why it has to be a combination of del v and del v transpose. Otherwise, we won't get a symmetric matrix. To get a symmetric matrix, we are adding this del v transpose to del v. And Newton noted that shear stresses are related to velocity gradients. That's what we discussed in first few classes, that stress was found to be proportional to du by dy, right, for a parallel plate flow. So he knew that it is somehow related to velocity gradients. So for a general flow, velocity gradients are there. This is the matrix for velocity gradients, del v, or gradient of velocity, and grad v transpose has to be added to it to make the final matrix symmetric. That's why we added del v transpose here. That gives us the general formula for a Newtonian flow. Okay. Now this is 2 dou v by dou y, and the third element here, the diagonal element, 2w by dou z, and the element here is dou v by dou z plus dou w by dou y. And what you get here and here is already present here. Okay, and you multiply this with viscosity and you get the stress tensor. Is there any question? All right, I'm deriving all this so that you can see how it comes, but I'll not be asking all this. I'll not ask you to do matrix multiplications and things like that in your exams. So this del dot tau for a Newtonian fluid becomes mu del square v. V is velocity. If I expand this, you will get mu dou y square. Oh, sorry. Dou z square. Therefore, if I have to write the momentum equation in x direction, this equation for x direction, let me write it here itself. X direction, rho du by dt, which is the x component of velocity, equal to just the x component of the gradient of pressure, dou p by dou x, plus the x component of mu del square v, which will be mu dou 2 u by dou x square plus dou 2 u by dou y square plus dou 2 u by dou z square. Similarly, the y component of the momentum equation will be rho dv by dt equal to minus del p by dou p by dou y plus mu v by dou x square v by dou y square dou 2v by dou z square. And let's say there is gravity in y direction, in the negative y direction, then you can write minus rho g also here. I hope this is clear. If there is any question, you can ask now. Okay. Now let us see how we solve these equations for a very simple flow. Let us keep them here. Okay. Let's take our geometry that we took before also. The top plate is moving with velocity capital U in the positive x direction. And let's say the plates are at a distance y naught from one another. And let's say this is y equal to 0, this point. Then the top plate is at y equal to y naught. And let us assume that the flow is fully developed. That means in x direction it is not changing anymore. And these are infinitely long plates. And this is two-dimensional problem. So the third direction does not affect the flow. Therefore, our assumptions are as follows. First assumption, steady flow. Therefore, nothing is a function of time. Velocity and pressure are not functions of time. Second, fully developed flow. Which means nothing is a function of x. Fully developed flow actually does not mean that nothing is a function of x. Pressure is still a function of x, but in this case there is no pressure gradient, let us assume, because the flow is due to the top plate motion. It is not because of any pressure gradient in the x direction, which is the case for a pipe flow. In case of a pipe flow, you apply some pressure on one end, and on the other end there is a small value of pressure. Therefore the flow is from high pressure to low pressure. So pressure still can vary with x even if the flow is fully developed, but velocity is not a function of x. That is what is assumed. But in this case, everything is not a function of x. So we can say that velocity and pressure are not a function of x. Third, we are assuming that the fluid is Newtonian. And we are assuming that it is incompressible. And when we assumed steady flow, it implies that it is also laminar flow, because turbulent flow is always unsteady. So all the streamlines are straight. So it is a laminar flow. Now we'll solve these equations. Okay, can you tell me what happens to the left hand side? Does it go to zero because of this steady flow assumption? Can you write yes or no? So this du by dt that I have written here, this is a short form for a long number of terms. This is material derivative, and it can be written in terms of partial derivatives, which is du by dt is plus u dou u by dou x plus v dou u by dou y in 2 dimensions. This is what it is. Okay. Now this dou u by dou t is 0 because it is steady. But these terms we can't say that they are 0 just because it is a steady flow. Okay. Let us write the continuity equation also, which is del dot v equal to 0, which gives dou u by dou x plus dou v by dou y equal to 0. Now we assumed that velocity is not a function of x, so this goes to 0. Therefore, v velocity is not a function of y. Okay. So here if you see dou u by dou x goes to 0, u is non-zero, and in this term we can't say that dou u by dou y should be 0, but we can say that vertical velocity v should be 0. How can we say that v should be 0? From here, from this diagram, you can see we discussed no slip boundary condition, and I'm not sure if we discussed the other condition related to flow over a solid wall, that is no penetration condition, that the flow cannot penetrate the wall, also known as no pore condition. If there is a solid wall, near the solid wall, the flow can only be parallel to the wall. It cannot go inside the wall or come out of the wall. So vertical velocity has to be 0 near a wall. Okay, this is known as no pore or no penetration condition. Therefore, vertical velocity v is 0 at the wall, and from here we see that it does not change with y. Therefore, everywhere v has to be 0. Everywhere. Okay. Therefore, dou u by dou y may not be 0, but this v is 0. That's why both of these terms are 0. This implies that du by dt is 0. So it is not just because of steady state flow that these two other terms are 0. Okay, is that clear? If there is a question, you may ask. All right. So this left hand side becomes 0. Now we also said that pressure is not varying with x. Okay. So this is also 0 in this case. Now what about these other terms? Velocity is not changing with x, therefore this is 0. There is no z dependence. We are considering a two-dimensional flow, that is 0. But this term may not be 0. U may be a function of y. So we can write from the x momentum equation, what we get is mu dou 2u by dou y square is 0. And from the y equation, v is 0. Therefore, this entire thing is 0 because it will contain v, vertical velocity. Pressure may be a function of y if there is gravity. But right now, let us neglect gravity for simplicity. Otherwise, you will have gravity. You will have pressure gradient in y. So right now, let us say there is no gravity and there is no pressure gradient in y direction. And again, these terms are 0 because v is 0. So y equation we don't even need. Everything is 0 there. So we need to solve only this x momentum equation, and continuity equation we have already used here. Also, because u is not a function of x, it is only a function of y, we can convert this partial derivative into a total derivative, which is d2u by dy square equal to 0. Viscosity is a finite number. If it is constant, even if it is a variable, it is finite. This implies d2u by dy square is 0. Now we can integrate this equation. We will get u equal to some constant times y plus some other constant. Okay, is that clear? I have missed a step in between, but you can derive from here that du by dy should be a constant. And from there we get u equal to c1y plus c2. Now we need two boundary conditions to get c1 and c2. We have two boundary conditions which are at y equal to 0. It is a stationary wall. So from the no slip boundary condition, we know that velocity should be 0. And at the top wall, that is y equal to y naught, velocity should be capital U. So now we apply these boundary conditions here. U equal to 0 at y equal to 0 gives us C2 equal to 0. So U equal to C1y. Now U equal to U at y equal to y naught gives us C1 equal to U by y naught. Therefore, the velocity profile that we get is the equation for velocity uy by y naught, which is linear. You can plot it at any cross section, at any location x. It does not matter where you are, at which x you are, velocity will look like this. So it will linearly increase from 0 to capital U at the top boundary. Okay, is that clear? And from here you can also find the stress, which is mu du by dy. Du by dy is u by y naught, and mu times that is mu u by y naught, which is tau yx. All right, which is a constant in the entire fluid. Okay, so we'll stop here. We'll discuss more in the next class. If there are any questions, you can mail. Okay, thank you.